Well, let's talk about this question. It's called Young Physicist. You can take a second, pause the video, read the question. But the question essentially says that a young guy named Vasya didn't do his homework or physics homework. And to teach him a lesson, his physics teacher gave him a question or set of questions where he had to make sure if an object was in equilibrium or not. And to do this, actually, let's just go through the inputs first. The first input that we're given is n, which is the number n lines that we will have. So 3 here, 3 lines that we have here, 3 here, we have 3 lines here. And then at each of these lines, we have an x coordinate, y coordinate, and z coordinate. And our output has to be yes if the body is in equilibrium, and the word no if it's not. Well, this is a 1000 level question. Let's actually go through what our process could be here. But before we even do that, a body is said to be in equilibrium when the sum of all of its x coordinates equal to 0, sum of all the y coordinates equal to 0, and the sum of all the z coordinates equals to 0. So in this situation, we have the first line says 4, which is the first x coordinate, -2 is the second x coordinate, and 1 is the third x coordinate. Crux of the question is to make sure that the sum of all of the x coordinates equal to 0, the sum of all of the y coordinates equal to 0, and the sum of all the z coordinates are equal to 0. Let's just go through this input example, or this example. We see that the first x coordinate is 4, the second is -2, the third is 1, and the sum of that is +3. Let's continue. But since the first x coordinate is not 0, we can say that the body is not in equilibrium. Similarly, we can do that with the y coordinates. In the y coordinate situation, the sum is 0, and the z coordinate situation, our sum is +3 again. So when we do all of the sums, we get the value 303, which means the body is not in equilibrium. Versus when we do it here, we'll get 000, which means the body is in equilibrium. I actually solved this question earlier, but in this question, I was using arrays and vectors to essentially count and store all of these values. But as I thought a little bit more about it, I realized that we don't even need to store all of these values. We can just read them while we're inputting them, and store it in a variable and compare the sum of that variable at the end when we're outputting the answer. So that's the solution that I'm going to present. But if you find any ways to make it more efficient, anything better that could be done, please let me know as well. Let's start off with our template. We know that we're inputting the first value, which is n. So int n, and we input the value n. We will, for each of the, axes, we will initialize the value 0 for each of them, or the sum of x is 0, sum of y is 0, and sum of z will be 0. This is just us initializing. And we will essentially iterate through all of the n's, or the number of times n occurs. So that's why we do while n minus minus. And then we are inputting 3 values every time we go through these, the x value, the y value, and the z value. So we're gonna do that, and x, y, and z will be inputted and initialized, and then we'll take in those values. And as we're taking these values, we will just add those values to the sums that we initialized here, the sum of x-axis, sum of y-axis, and sum of z-axis, like that. So sum of x will be plus equal x, sum of y plus equals y, and sum of z is plus equals z. Once we have done that, we've done the heavy work. While we're outputting, we essentially have to make sure that all of these sums are equal to 0. Even if one is not, we have to output no. In order to do that, we can do essentially an if statement, or we can do the same thing in a single line in C++. We're essentially doing if sum of x is 0 and sum of y equals 0 and sum of z equal 0. If that is the case, we essentially do this question mark, and if it is, we will output yes. If not, we will output the word no, like that. And then just that, and I believe the code should work. Let's run this code to see if it works. Okay, it did compile. That's a good sign. Let's do that, and let's take both of these input scenarios and examples to check. So I copied the first input example where the answer that we're expecting is no. Let's see if we get no. We do get no. That's good. Let's run it again with the second input example that we have. We're expecting yes in this situation. We do get a yes. And that's about the crux of the code. That's how I did this. If you do find something better, please let me know as well. Let's just run this on Codeforces to make sure it actually works. Oh, there we go. It works. 92 milliseconds, 100 kilobytes in memory. Let me know if you find any better or more optimized solution. But that's it for this question, Young Physicist. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video.